Well, that was easy.
Zelda Wii U, as scarce as the information is being told by developers as the best Zelda experience ever. And they are working hard to meet everyone's high expectations. And we have them, naturally.
All of the Zelda games beforehand have been stellar in their own way, but each always had some sort of inhibitor.
So today, HMK and Commonwealth Realm are going to bring you the top 10 improvements of Zelda games of days past, so that Zelda Wii U may be the best game in the series. Let's not stall anymore, let's get into it.
The ability to bend time to your will is something that the Zelda games have always explored in the past, with each game exploring its own way of time manipulation.
In Ocarina of Time you were able to travel between two time periods, and in Majora's Mask and Oracle of Ages you had a limited ability to alter the course of time.
In Zelda Wii U, we have seen somewhat of a glimpse at a potential ability to slow down time in a bullet time mode, to precisely aim with your arrows. We don't know if this ability is powered through an item or a spell, but it definitely gets our hopes high for what could be in Zelda Wii U when they're dealing with time. We can see tricks and abilities that we've never seen in a Zelda game, and this is what we want.
The Highland Language and the hieroglyphics has been something that has been intriguing and changing within the Zelda series. According to Hyrule Historia, there are at least 4 different versions of the Highland Language that are separated by generations in the game, in the timeline.
A way for Zelda to reach new heights of fandom in Zelda Wii U is to have a fully translatable and speakable Highland Language. Something akin to the Dino language we saw in Star Fox Adventures. Nintendo can do it. A feature like this will definitely increase the immersion of the game and will allow fans the world over to explore new heights of the Zelda lore by studying up the language. And will make that package much more deeper.
Simply saying a darker story doesn't really mean something that's entirely mature and or full of despair.
Skyward Sword was seen on surface as an epic of a Zelda game. However, that game had its radically dark moments. Wind Waker's appearance would beacon childish sneers from those who didn't play the game, but if you experience the story and how it connects to the overall chronology of The Legend of Zelda, you would know that the game had some massively dark foreshadowing and setup to its story, and its own dire consequences as well.
What I mean by a darker story is a story that isn't afraid to tackle sensitive subjects. We're talking about themes, events, and moments that will beckon every type of emotion that you have to give you a grand and riveting tale.
Zelda Wii U needs to have an ample and respectful difficulty level for the first playthrough of the game. True to the recent standard of Zelda games, it should also have a second playthrough difficulty option with additional perks. I'm talking hero mode, baby!
Enemies should be less formulaic and surprise. Puzzles should be fresh and challenging because there's that one design flow that some Zelda games had, and that is if you play previous installments you may have the edge on certain recycled or updated puzzles due to experience, which isn't a bad thing entirely, but we want to be pushed to the edge.
Difficulty in Zelda games have always been in flux, but Nintendo needs to look at the series and pick apart the best and most challenging aspects of the series as groundwork to set up treacherous adventures in Zelda Wii U. Since this game is described repeatedly as having a huge open world, the biggest in a Zelda game, it should go without saying that this game needs a huge amount of dungeons, both big and small. What I mean by this is Nintendo should totally rip a page from A Link Between Worlds, because that game had a cool feature of mini dungeons that were totally optional to the player's quest.
Zelda Wii U should have a bunch of those, yielding great optional material as prizes, like items, weapons, synthesis materials, and more. The developers have stated that they want to reward the player for exploring this vast land, and this is one great way to do it. Perhaps even dungeons that can only be accessed after you have finished the main story. Think a bit of the Super Mario Special Worlds.
Oh man, what could have been in Twilight Princess. But nope! Nope. Zelda Wii U should totally have a mission system that you'll be able to take on jobs of different types for rewards and money and synthesis materials.
A list like this can be found in a certain area, maybe a billboard by the castle, or jobs that can be sent to one of the many mailboxes that could be scattered across Hyrule.
Or, I don't know, a pub where missions are handed out to an underground resistance, but not really? God. These jobs could potentially range from escort and protection missions, treasure hunting, and bounty missions, while the rewards can yield great amount of rupees, synthesis materials, and exclusive items such as shields and tunics. Missions will be updated as you progress further in the story, or by activating them by triggering certain events in the game.
Knowing Nintendo and the Zelda series, there's probably going to be a great amount of varied boss fights that you will encounter in the game. Bosses are almost always enjoyable to fight against. Almost. And Zelda Wii U should have a boss gauntlet mode in a similar vein as we saw in Ocarina of Time and Skyward Sword.
Now this is where my Kingdom Hearts fandom spills into Zelda. In Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, there was an area called the Garden of Assemblage where you had the option to replay some of the bosses of the game known as the Organization 13. But in these boss fights, the organization is much stronger than they were when you originally fought them in the story. And if you beat them, you get banging rewards.
So in that sense, perhaps Zelda Wii U could have a similar option to fight bosses again that are more powerful than the original form and that will grant you awesome rewards that are worth the effort that you can use to wreck the game.
Zelda Wii U should totally have a dynamic world, and when I say that, I don't mean just a living, breathing world, something more like that. A world that changes and shifts due to the choices you make. Perhaps that's the true way to get a world living and breathing. Let me set up a scenario for you. Let's say a big random rampaging boss is on the field, let's say Goma. And you see Goma destroying the field or going on a rampage from a distance, and you decide that you don't want to mess with that. So you go about doing your own thing and just let Goma do her own thing.
Well, it turns out later on she destroyed an entire village in a path, and that village had a bunch of stuff you need and you won't get it until it's rebuilt. Or perhaps a bridge gets wasted or something. I'm talking about changes like that. But it doesn't have to be negative. Imagine you help a random beggar one day. Later in the game, it turns out that that beggar used the money you gave him or her to open up a shop or business that will totally back you up in your quest free of charge or at a reasonable price, rather than you have to pay for the services if you didn't help the beggar a while back.
This way, the game will still have some sort of consistency across the board, but will still make your own adventure truly something that belongs to you.
Enemies in Zelda Wii U need to be frightening. Not in terms of design, but in terms of AI. Most if not all enemies need to have the ability to make you question if you will make it out of the battle alive or not. And of course, when it comes to the skill of the player and the item scaling can beast its foes.
Despite that, enemies need to feel like they can end you if you make the wrong move. In this sense, they should take notes from the Dark Souls series when it comes to how enemies can murk a player. The enemy's AI should also be able to interact with the surroundings, find the high ground, and lure players into a trap. Of course, AI will differentiate depending on the enemy, but wondering what the enemy is capable of is part of the fun. The Legend of Zelda series has always been about gameplay first and story later, and that's completely fine. But when it comes to Zelda Wii U, it needs a story that will be incredibly important to the overall legend and shake the foundation of the timeline.
Something that will be truly felt, something that we will be remembering, something that Zelda fans will be talking about forever. We're talking about a story that will rival or even weigh heavier on the scales than that of Ocarina of Time and Skyward Sword in terms of importance to the chronology.
But what can make Zelda Wii U's story impactful? New elements to the lore? An event that will affect the series going forward or backwards? Revelation of secrets that remain hidden for years? A conspiracy that will change everything we know about the Zelda games? Whatever it is the void of the unknown that gets me excited for what could be. But whatever it is, it will be big. So what did you guys think about these improvements? Do you think by including these that Zelda Wii U will be the Kaiser of all Zelda games? Leave your comments and thoughts below. This is the top 10 from the hectic side of things, HMK. If you want to check out Commonwealth Realms' top 10, head over to his channel and check them out. But while you're here, like, share, favorite, and subscribe. And until the next Zelda Wii U video,
This has been HMK,
And Commonwealth Realm.
and we will check you guys later.
later.